They faked her dementia diagnosis, just to seize her art collection, worth millions. They almost got away with it. Almost. I'm Victoria, and welcome back to the channel, where we talk about things people try to keep hidden, deeply buried secrets, stories of betrayal, unbelievable survival, and sometimes truly intense payback. Today's story, it's a heavy one. It involves the kind of violation that chills you to the bone. It comes from a woman I'll call Agnes, a name chosen for its quiet strength. I met her through a mutual acquaintance, a retired lawyer friend who knew I sometimes helped people share difficult narratives. Agnes needed someone to, well, just listen. At first, she needed to unburden herself, to lay out the pieces of what had happened. Agnes, she's in her late 70s now, maybe early 80s, and she is sharp as a tack, razor sharp, but there's this quiet intensity about her, like a perfectly wound clock, ticking silently, holding immense potential energy, or maybe like a coiled spring, waiting. She used to create cryptic crosswords, professionally, for newspapers, magazines, you know the kind, fiendishly difficult, layers upon layers, playing with words, patterns, hidden meanings, double meanings. That mind, that incredible analytical mind, became the target, and then, ultimately, her most powerful weapon. This story, it's about how the people closest to you, the ones you trust implicitly, your own blood, can inflict the deepest wounds, how they can try to systematically erase you, piece by painstaking piece, try to steal not just your possessions, but your very sense of self. But it's also about what happens when you push someone with hidden steel, hidden reserves of strength, too far. What happens when the victim refuses to remain a victim? You absolutely need to hear how she turned the tables. The planning, the execution, it's just incredible. So hit that subscribe button right now. Seriously, don't miss this. You won't forget Agnes, or what she managed to do. Okay, let me take you back to before the storm hit. Agnes asked me to share this, using her words, her perspective. She wants her truth known. So now, I'm going to let her speak. This is Agnes's story, in her own voice. My life before, it was quiet, structured, ordered just the way I liked it, especially after Arthur passed. My late husband Arthur, he was the collector, the one with the eye, the passion. He adored art, particularly modern British painters, Freud, Auerbach, Kossoff, Hepworth, Bacon. His knowledge was encyclopedic, his love for it, infectious. Our home wasn't ostentatious, comfortable, but not a palace, but the walls, oh the walls, they held stories. Immense value, and so many memories, each piece, a conversation Arthur had had, a discovery, a moment of shared excitement. His legacy, our legacy, really, it was woven into the fabric of our life together. After Arthur passed, suddenly, unexpectedly, the house felt too large, cavernous, too quiet. The silence was deafening sometimes, but the art, looking at it, it was like having a part of him still there, vibrant, challenging, sometimes difficult, but always alive. It was a connection, a tangible link to our shared past. I had my crosswords, my work, which kept my mind sharp, engaged. I had my routines, my garden, my memories. It was a solitary life, perhaps, but not lonely, not then. My niece Chloe, she was my only remaining close family. Really, her mother, my dear sister Helen, passed away far too young. Years ago. Chloe was just a girl then. I'd always tried to be there for her, a supportive aunt. She started visiting more often after Arthur died, which seemed natural, supportive. She'd call first, then just start dropping by, bringing her husband, Marcus. He was charming, superficially so, I see that now, but then, he seemed attentive, always complimenting the art, asking questions, seemingly genuinely interested. He learned the names, the periods, quickly, impressively so. Chloe was solicitous, almost overly concerned about me being alone. Aunt Agnes, you shouldn't be rattling around in this big house by yourself, she'd say, her brow furrowed with worry. Let us help you, simplify things, take some of the burden off. At first, it was nice, honestly, it was, company, someone to talk to, help with groceries, errands, lifting heavy things for the garden, small kindnesses, that seemed genuine. Then I had a minor stroke. A TIA, transient ischemic attack, the doctors called it. It wasn't catastrophic, but it affected my balance significantly for a while, and it shook my confidence more than anything cognitive, that feeling of physical vulnerability. It was new, unsettling, but they seized on it, Chloe and Marcus, like vultures spotting weakness. Though I didn't see it that way then. See, Aunt Agnes, you need us, you really do need looking after now, Chloe insisted. Her voice laced with that manufactured concern. Marcus was suddenly much more present, always around, fixing things, offering advice. They moved into the guest wing. Just temporarily, of course, while you recover fully, Chloe assured me. We wouldn't want you to be alone. What if something else happened? Marcus added, smoothly. Temporary became permanent, somehow, without any formal discussion. They just stayed, unpacked more things, settled in. And they started, managing things, little things at first, paying bills online. Easier for you, Auntie, let me handle the direct debits. Organizing paperwork. Arthur had files everywhere. Marcus offered to digitize it. For safety, backups. Let us take the burden off you, Auntie, Marcus would say, his smile never quite reaching his eyes. That should have been a clue, but I missed it. I trusted them. Why wouldn't I? Chloe was my blood, my sister's daughter. Helen's child. I saw my sister in her smile sometimes. Or thought I did. Marcus, he seemed so capable, so caring, so knowledgeable about finance, technology. Things Arthur and I had left to advisors. Trust, what a fragile, precious thing, turns out. It can be the deadliest weapon used against you. They were so subtle, so insidious, at first, little comments, dropped like pebbles into a pond, creating ripples of doubt, suggestions, masked as helpfulness. Are you sure you put your keys there, Aunt Agnes? I thought I saw them on the hall table, when I knew I'd left them in my coat pocket. Didn't we discuss the council tax yesterday? You don't remember? Oh dear, delivered with a sigh, a look of pity, my crossword hobby, my pride, my mental exercise. They twisted it, subtly undermined it. Spending an awful lot of time on those tricky puzzles, Auntie, Chloe would say lightly. Maybe it's confusing you. Tiring your brain out, Marcus would chime in. Perhaps give it a rest for a bit, focus on relaxing. While they were tightening their grip, Chloe started accompanying me to doctor's appointments, insisting, I just want to be sure I understand everything, help you remember what he says. But in the appointments, she spoke for me, overrode me sometimes, expressing her concerns, privately to the doctor first, then in front of me, about my memory. My focus, exaggerating small lapses, twisting normal moments of forgetfulness into something sinister. Looking back, piecing it together, I think she was, maybe, swapping pills, or just adding something mild, prescribed perhaps for anxiety, but enough to make me foggy, less sharp, blur the edges. I started feeling off, not myself, difficulty concentrating sometimes, a mental slowness that wasn't there before, but when you're told repeatedly, consistently, by family, by doctors who seem to be listening more to your family, that you're declining, that your mind is failing, you start to doubt yourself. It's insidious, that creeping self-doubt. It eats away at your certainty, your confidence. Then came the power of attorney, the lasting power of attorney, for finances and for health, presented as a sensible precaution. Just a formality, Aunt Agnes, purely precautionary, in case anything serious happens. Chloe said, squeezing my hand, her eyes wide with false sincerity. Marcus explained the legal jargon, patiently, making it sound sensible, protective, completely standard for someone my age, living alone, well, previously living alone. This just allows us to handle things smoothly if you ever become unable. Pay your bills, ensure you get the best care. He explained, I was vulnerable, still recovering my full strength and balance after the stroke. Feeling confused, partly from the lingering effects, partly, perhaps, from something else they might have been giving me, and honestly, partly from their relentless suggestions that I was confused, I signed. The lawyer they brought seemed reputable. He confirmed it was standard procedure. He didn't probe, didn't ask me questions alone, and the door creaked open. Not just creaked, it swung wide, for the real darkness to enter. They began isolating me. Gently at first, then more systematically, screening calls. Oh, Mrs. Harrison called, Auntie was resting, I told her you'd call back. but the message was never passed on, or passed on days later, making excuses why old friends couldn't visit, friends who knew me well, who might notice inconsistencies. She's very tired today, the doctor advised quiet. She's having a bit of a confused day, best not to overwhelm her. My bridge partners. My book club friends, people from the Crossword Society, they gradually stopped calling, stopped trying to visit, thinking I was genuinely unwell or unwilling to see them. My world shrank, inexorably, to the confines of the house, their watchful eyes, their suffocating manufactured concern. Then I started noticing things, odd things, things that pricked through the fog, a small bronze sculpture, a lovely Hepworth piece. Arthur loved it, called it the dancer. It sat on the mantelpiece, it seemed different, the patina was wrong, too uniform, too new, less nuanced. I mentioned it, casually, trying not to sound accusatory. Has the light caught the bronze differently? It looks. Oh, Auntie, it's always looked like that. Chloe laughed, a little too quickly, a little too brightly. Don't be silly. Marcus changed the subject immediately, asking about lunch, then, a painting, a Ben Nicholson. One of his white reliefs, austere, incredibly beautiful. It hung in the study, the frame seemed newer, less substantial, and the texture, the subtle layers of paint, it looked flatter, less depth, again, dismissed with that same infuriating condescension. Your eyes must be playing tricks, Aunt Agnes, Marcus said. Or maybe the light changed when we put in those new bulbs, gaslighting. I know the word now, I understand the technique. Then. It was just bewildering, confusing, soul-destroying, making me question my own judgment, my own memories, my own eyes. I tried accessing my main bank accounts online, something I rarely did. They handled everything, supposedly. My password didn't work. The one I'd used for years. I asked Marcus about it, calmly. Oh yes, we updated the security for you, Auntie. Much safer protocols now, Marcus said smoothly, patting my arm. There was a security alert from the bank. We took care of it, don't you worry your head about it, it's all handled. He didn't offer the new password, and I didn't feel able, in that moment, to press him, but I did worry. A cold dread started to form, deep inside, beneath the confusion and the self-doubt. This wasn't care, this wasn't protection, this was something else, something predatory, calculating. They were living well, very well. New clothes, expensive labels I recognized, frequent expensive dinners out, meeting friends, they'd say, whispered conversations I wasn't meant to overhear, about trips, investments, a new car Marcus was considering, while I was becoming a ghost in my own home, a prisoner, waited on, managed, controlled, surrounded by ghosts of my own art, approximations, copies. The realization didn't hit like a lightning bolt. It seeped in, gradually. Chillingly, like poison spreading through my veins. They weren't just managing my finances. They were draining them, systematically, cleverly, and the art, Arthur's passion, our asterisk passion, the collection we'd spent decades building, loving, living with, they were selling it, piece by piece, off the walls of my own home, replacing originals, masterpieces worth hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions, with fakes, good fakes, incredibly good, sourced from somewhere. Costing them money, no doubt, but fakes nonetheless, living off the proceeds, destroying Arthur's legacy, my legacy, while pretending to care for me, keeping me comfortable, sedated, compliant. The betrayal, it was absolute, total, profound. It wasn't just about the money, though God knows, it was a fortune. Arthur had invested wisely, passionately. It was the violation, the calculated cruelty, the desecration of memory, of trust, of love. They were erasing me, my past, my connection to Arthur, replacing it all with lies, with replicas. They were banking on me being too frail, too confused, too demented to notice or to fight back. They were counting on the diagnosis they were actively manufacturing. The fog, the confusion they cultivated, it was thick, cloying, debilitating, but beneath it, something else was stirring, ignited by the sheer audacity, the coldness of their actions. Not just grief, not just fear, not just confusion, rage, pure, undiluted, righteous rage. It began as a spark, deep within, almost extinguished by the fog, then a flicker, catching hold, then a slow burn, gathering heat, intensity, I felt, consumed by it, but also, paradoxically, clarified by it. The helplessness, the victimhood they were forcing on me, started to recede, replaced by a cold, hard, calculating fury. They thought my mind was failing, diminishing, succumbing. They were wrong, so profoundly wrong. It was waking up, sharpening, focusing with a terrifying clarity, like solving the most complex, most personal, most high-stakes cryptic crossword of my life. The clues were scattered, hidden in plain sight, masked by deception, but they were there in their casual lies, their nervous glances, the changing art, the missing money. I just had to find them, decode them. Meticulously, patiently, and then use them, turn their own game back on them. Can you even imagine the sheer cold-blooded audacity, faking dementia, systematically selling priceless art piece by piece from under her nose, replacing it with forgeries, all while living under the same roof, smiling to her face, playing the part of devoted caregivers? It makes my blood run cold. Just thinking about the psychological cruelty. Stick with me, please, because Agnes's comeback, the way she meticulously planned and executed it, it's truly legendary. It's a masterclass in quiet resilience turning into righteous fury. If you believe in fighting back against injustice, against the exploitation of the vulnerable, click that like button right now. Show some support for the incredible strength it took for Agnes to even begin planning, to find that spark in the darkness. Okay, back to Agnes. The moment the tide truly began to turn, the spark catching fire. The turning point, the precise moment the slow burn ignited into a plan. It wasn't dramatic, not outwardly. It was quiet, almost mundane, but utterly chilling in its implications. They had an acquaintance over for dinner. Someone Marcus was clearly trying to impress, a potential business contact. Perhaps he was showing off his home, his impressive art collection, gesturing expansively. He stood before a landscape, a lovely Yvonne Hitchens, one of Arthur's favourites. Or rather, the fake Hitchens that now hung in its place, and he began pontificating, holding forth, using phrases, analysis, specific observations that he'd heard *me*use countless times, verbatim, discussing the unique brushwork, the provenance, the artist's intent, but he got a small detail wrong, a date, relating to a minor exhibition Arthur had loaned the original painting to, decades ago. Something only someone deeply familiar with the real painting, its specific history, would know or remember. He delivered it with such confidence, such unearned authority, such smug ownership, stealing not just the painting's monetary value, but its story, my story, Arthur's story, appropriating our memories, our passion, as his own. In that instant, watching him, listening to him parrot my words while making that crucial error. So pleased with himself, so utterly false from head to toe, the last vestiges of fog in my mind didn't just burn away, they vaporized, instantly, replaced by ice, cold, sharp, crystalline ice. My mind, the crossword setter's mind, the mind that dissects ambiguity, finds hidden links, constructs intricate patterns, snapped into focus, utterly, completely, patterns, connections, strategy, risk assessment, deception, counter-deception. They underestimated me, profoundly. They saw an old woman, frail, confused, declining, easily managed, easily dismissed. They didn't see the mind that wrestled daily with complex wordplay, that saw hidden meanings, that thrived on logic and deduction, that built intricate structures out of language. They tried to steal my mind, my legacy, my connection to Arthur. Fine, my mind would be the instrument of their destruction. I started playing the part. The role they had cast for me, but with conscious intent, leaned into the confusion, more convincingly, I hoped, asked repetitive questions, deliberately feigned forgetfulness about conversations from moments before, appeared more frail, more dependent, needing more help with simple tasks. It was nauseating, degrading, performing my own decline, letting Chloe fuss over me, letting Marcus patronize me. But it was necessary, absolutely critical. It bought me time, precious time, and more importantly, it lowered their guard, made them complacent, even more arrogant while outwardly declining, failing. Inwardly, I was observing, meticulously, relentlessly, every conversation snippet overheard, knotting times, dates, subjects, every slight inconsistency in their stories, their alibis for evenings out, every flicker of unease in their eyes when a particular topic came up, finance, certain art dealers. Every delivery received, every hushed phone call Marcus took in the garden, I started documenting, secretly, in the dead of night, using tiny notebooks, the kind used for birdwatching logs, small, easily concealable, writing in a mixture of shorthand and personal code, developed over years of crossword setting, indecipherable to anyone else, tiny details about the fakes, differences only I would notice, brushstroke anomalies visible only up close, slight color variations compared to my memory or old photos, details of incorrect signatures under a small magnifying glass I kept hidden. I needed proof, hard proof, irrefutable proof, not just my word against theirs, especially when they'd already poisoned the well so effectively regarding my mental state. My testimony alone would be dismissed, pitted against the loving niece and her supportive husband, and possibly a compromised doctor's opinion. I remembered a burner phone, a simple, cheap pay-as-you-go phone, bought years ago on a whim after reading a thriller novel, just in case, a little bit of paranoia I'd forgotten about. It was tucked away in an old hat box, in the back of the attic wardrobe, amongst Arthur's mothballed winter coats. Finding it again took effort. Pretending to look for something else, charging it secretly, was a major challenge. They monitored my movements, even at night. Chloe often checked on me. I had to use the brief windows when they went out for their expensive dinners, plugging it in behind a dusty bookshelf in the spare room, unplugging it before they returned, just short bursts of charging, over days, weeks. It felt like something out of a spy novel. Absurd, but deadly serious. I needed help, from the outside, someone discreet, someone knowledgeable about art, someone beyond reproach. I remembered Julian Croft. An art authenticator and historian Arthur had trusted implicitly, consulted many times, retired now, living somewhere quietly, but sharp, principled, utterly incorruptible. He had despised fakes and forgers with a passion. Getting a message to him was the first major hurdle. A direct call was too risky. They screened my incoming calls, and might check outgoing logs. I started writing letters. Long, rambling, seemingly confused letters, addressed to old friends. Friends I knew Chloe wouldn't bother contacting to verify, people who had moved away, or were perhaps even deceased, scattering them with disjointed memories, non sequiturs, complaints about the weather, but embedded within the rambling were coded messages. My old skills put to use, using techniques from cryptic crosswords, anagrams of key words, hidden messages in the first letter of each sentence of a particular paragraph. Acrostics spelling out Julian Croft or need assistance, things Chloe and Marcus, if they bothered to glance at them before posting, would scan, dismiss as the nonsensical ramblings of a deteriorating mind, confirming their narrative. But Julian, if a letter ever reached him, he might recognize the patterns, the style, the faint echo of the cryptic mind he knew. He might see the plea hidden within the noise. I addressed one specifically, not directly to his home. I didn't know his current address, but to a non-existent curator of archives at his last known gallery affiliation, hoping it might somehow be forwarded, or land on the desk of someone who knew him. It was a long shot, a desperate, almost hopeless shot, based on faith in the postal system and the smallness of the art world. Weeks passed, silence, an agonizing silence. Each day felt like a year. My hope dwindled. Maybe the letter never arrived. Maybe Julian was unreachable. Maybe he thought I really was losing my mind. Then, one afternoon, mixed in with the usual junk mail and bills, a postcard arrived, innocuous, a Turner landscape, the Fighting Temeraire on the back, a simple handwritten message. Thinking of you, remember that cafe near the Tate, the one with the awful scones, J. Julian. He got it, he understood. The cafe, a place we'd met with Arthur once. Years ago. To discuss an attribution. It was our code. He remembered, he was willing to listen. The relief was immense, almost buckling my knees, but I showed nothing, took the postcard calmly, tucked it away. Now I needed concrete evidence to give him, something tangible, something undeniable. I started taking photos, secretly, in the dead of night or when they were out, using the burner phone's surprisingly decent camera, close-ups of the suspect art. Details of the texture, the signatures, the frames, comparing them mentally to the originals burned into my memory, documenting the asterisk absence of tiny imperfections I knew should be there, a specific crackle in the varnish, a slight warp in a canvas stretcher. Getting these digital files out of the house, another cryptic challenge. Emailing was too risky, traceable. I feigned a sudden desire to sort through old clothes, winter things, for charity, packed several boxes. Mumbling about clearing clutter, Chloe seemed pleased, encouraged it. Anything that made the house seem less mine. I slipped the phone's small memory card, wrapped carefully in tissue paper, inside the zippered pocket of an old tweed coat of Arthur's, a coat I knew wouldn't be wanted by anyone, likely destined for textile recycling. I marked that specific box for a particular charity collection point near Julian's old neighborhood. Another long shot. Another coded element in the unfolding plan. Another letter, seemingly rambling, mentioned donating Arthur's old coats to this specific charity. Hoping Julian would connect the dots. Maury waiting, excruciating, torturous. Every creak of the floorboards made me jump. Every unexpected knock on the door sent my heart racing. Then, another postcard, this time a modern abstract, maybe a Davy. Received your donation. Interesting textiles, some unusual weaves. Maury information needed for proper assessment, perhaps documentation. He had the card. He'd examined the photos. He suspected. His expert eye saw the discrepancies, but he needed more, proof of the sales, proof linking Chloe and Marcus directly to the disposal of the originals and the acquisition of the fakes, financial trails, communications. That proof, I suspected, lived on Marcus's precious tablet computer. He was arrogant, increasingly careless. Used it for everything, banking, emails, social media, and, I guessed, managing their illicit transactions, their communications with unscrupulous dealers, their hidden offshore accounts. He used a highly secure cloud storage service, mentioned it once, boasting about its military-grade encryption. Feeling untouchable, he often left the tablet charging, carelessly, on a side table in the library, usually locked, of course, with a passcode or a swipe pattern. I needed that password, or the pattern. This was the ultimate cryptic clue, the key to unlocking everything. I watched him, intensely, covertly, whenever he used it near me, his fingers, the pattern they made on the screen, sometimes a complex swipe, sometimes, when he was lazy, a numeric passcode, his verbal tics, numbers he favored, names he mentioned frequently, dates that seemed significant to him or to them as a couple. He was predictable. In his vanity, his arrogance, Chloe's birthday, too obvious, he wasn't sentimental, their anniversary, perhaps, but likely mixed with something else, something representing his success, his cleverness. What was the first major piece they sold? The one they seemed most smug about, a small, intensely valuable Freud portrait, a self-portrait. I remembered their whispered celebrations afterwards. The new watches they both suddenly acquired, anniversary date. Month and day, plus the artist's name. Freud, maybe capitalized, maybe with a number, the year of their anniversary, or the year they sold the Freud. My mind raced, testing combinations, permutations, like filling a complex crossword grid, eliminating possibilities, following the logic of his personality. I settled on a likely candidate, anniversary month day, Freud, anniversary year, MMDD Freud YI. It felt right. It fit his vanity. His carelessness masked as complex security, combining personal significance with the spoils of their crime. Now, how to get access, how to use it without being caught. The plan formed, intricate, risky, requiring perfect timing, perfect acting, perfect coordination. I used my burner phone, one last time, a short, coded text message to Julian, just 3 words. Tea party soon, bring paperwork, urgent. Julian understood. Paperwork meant legal counsel. He contacted a lawyer, discreetly, someone he knew specialized in elder fraud and financial abuse. Ms. Evelyn Davies, sharp, tenacious, empathetic but tough, he briefed her thoroughly. They would arrive together, posing as representatives from a seniors' welfare agency, checking on my well-being and care arrangements. A plausible scenario given my condition, something Chloe and Marcus couldn't easily refuse without raising suspicion. The day arrived, a grey Tuesday morning. My nerves were frayed, stretched thin, but the cold rage, the icy certainty, kept me steady. Focused, Chloe and Marcus were, visibly irritated by the unexpected official visit, but quickly put on their usual show of solicitous concern for the visitors, the caring niece and nephew-in-law, ushering Julian and Miss Davies into the living room, offering tea, coffee, displaying their impeccable hospitality. This was my chance. Moment I'd rehearsed in my mind 100 times, as Marcus turned towards the kitchen, his back to the library doorway for just a second, to fetch the refreshments. His tablet lay charging on the library side table, visible from the hall, exactly as I'd hoped. Prayed, I took a deep breath, held it, and executed my move. With a small, convincing cry, I pretended to stumble, lurching sideways as if losing my balance, catching myself heavily on the doorframe. A sudden dizzy spell. Aunt Agnes, Chloe rushed towards me, all fuss and bother, blocking the view, completely distracted. Marcus glanced back, annoyed at the interruption, his attention momentarily diverted from his guests and his device. In that brief moment, shielded by Chloe's unnecessary ministrations, my hand darted out, quick as a snake, fingers closing around the cool metal of the tablet, slipped it off the table, tucked it smoothly into the deep, specially reinforced pocket of my old, loose-fitting cardigan. Smooth, silent, unnoticed. "I'm all right, dear, just a bit unsteady," I murmured, leaning heavily on Chloe, allowing her to help me slowly to my usual armchair in the living room, settling myself, appearing frail, shaken, slightly breathless. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird, but my hands, hidden in my lap, were steady, rock steady. They resumed their conversation, Marcus returning with a tray, explaining their devoted care, the improvements they'd made to the house for Auntie's comfort, Chloe nodding agreement, adding details about my good days and bad days. Miss Davies asked pointed, yet seemingly innocent questions about finances, access to funds, medical care decisions, her voice calm, professional, unwavering. Julian, Mr. Smith, observed, his face impassive, but his eyes missing nothing. Beneath the comforting folds of my cardigan, hidden from view, I gripped the tablet, powered it on silently. The lock screen appeared. The moment of truth, I took another silent, steadying breath, entered the password I'd deduced, praying I was right. Month, day, Freud, year, MMDD Freud YI. My fingers tapped the sequence. Click, it unlocked. The home screen appeared. My breath caught in my throat. A wave of overwhelming relief washed over me, quickly followed by a surge of pure adrenaline. Focus. My fingers flew across the screen, muscle memory from years of typing, navigating, searching, cloud storage app, found it, the logo Marcus had boasted about, folder marked assets, how arrogant, opened it, subfolders, inventory, sales, correspondence, accounts, it was all there, everything, more than I could have hoped for. Scans of authenticity certificates for the *real* paintings, the ones now missing, juxtaposed with invoices, receipts, for the fakes, detailing their cost, their source, a dealer in Brussels, dates of sales of the originals, buyers' names, amounts transferred, vast sums, laundered through shell corporations, ending up in offshore accounts listed with account numbers, passwords, emails, hundreds of them, between Chloe and Marcus, chillingly casual, sickeningly intimate, discussing which piece to sell next, complaining about the cost of good quality replicas, mocking my decline, congratulating themselves on their cleverness, their perfect plan, arguing about how to spend the money, voicemail saved, Marcus bragging to someone, Chloe complaining about having to manage me. The evidence was damning, absolute, undeniable, a complete chronicle of their deliberate long-term fraud and abuse. Now, for the reveal. The Checkmate, I found the screen mirroring option, connected to the house Wi-Fi, selected the large smart TV mounted on the living room wall, the one they used constantly for movies, streaming, showing off, connected, a small icon confirmed it, and with one final deliberate tap, my finger steady, I projected the contents of the sales folder, the details of the offshore accounts, the incriminating bank transfers, and then started slowly scrolling through the most callous, damning emails onto the massive screen. Silence, a stunned, horrified, absolute silence, descended on the room. Chloe was mid-sentence, talking about ensuring my comfort and dignity. Her voice trailed off, sputtered, died, her eyes fixed on the TV screen, the light reflecting in her widening pupils. Disbelieving, then terrified, Marcus followed her gaze, his face, drained of all colour, turning a pasty grey. Frozen, aghast, utterly exposed, Miss Davies and Julian turned simultaneously, their professional composure momentarily broken by raw surprise, then hardening instantly into grim legal satisfaction. The evidence, bold, undeniable, filled the room, scrolling slowly, relentlessly, email after damning email, bank statement after bank statement, forgery invoice after forgery invoice. Chloe let out a strangled gasp, then a raw scream. Pure fury and panic mingled together. You, how could you senile old bitch, the mask completely gone, revealing the viper beneath. Marcus just stood there, paralyzed, mouth opening and closing like a landed fish, utterly exposed, stripped bare before his important guest, his partner, his lawyer. I met his eyes across the room. His stunned, terrified, hate-filled eyes held his gaze, steady, unwavering, and for the first time in months, perhaps years, I allowed myself to smile, a cold, hard, deeply satisfied smile. Checkmate, darling Marcus, checkmate. Wow, just wow, the image of that evidence, scrolling relentlessly across the big screen, while they stand there, trapped, exposed, speechless, then screaming. It gives me chills, the good kind, the justice kind, Agnes's mind, the very thing they tried to weaponize against her. The instrument they planned to use to declare her incompetent turned out to be the sharpest weapon of all, a precision instrument of retribution. The fallout, as you can imagine, was swift, immediate, and brutal. Ms. Davies, the lawyer, immediately took control of the situation, her calm professionalism a stark contrast to Chloe's hysterics and Marcus's catatonic shock. She advised them not to say another word, advice Chloe ignored in her rage, digging herself deeper. Police were called, discreetly at first, arriving without sirens. Ms. Davies wanted to contain the scene, preserve the evidence, manage the process, the evidence on the tablet, backed up immediately to a secure drive Ms. Davies had brought, combined with Julian's expert testimony about the fakes and Agnes's own meticulous coded notebooks, which she finally produced, built an ironclad, unshakable case. Chloe and Marcus were arrested, right there in the living room, amidst the ghost art and the scrolling evidence of their crimes, read their rights, handcuffed, led away, their faces a mixture of disbelief, fury, and sheer terror. They were charged with multiple counts, a long, devastating list: grand theft, multiple counts of fraud, felony elder abuse, forgery, conspiracy, money laundering, tax evasion. The list went on. The art world was rocked by the scandal. When the news eventually broke, the audacity, the cruelty aimed at a vulnerable elder, the sheer scale of the deception involving major artworks, it sent shockwaves through galleries, auction houses, collectors' circles. Their carefully constructed social standing, their reputation among friends and Marcus's business contacts, evaporated overnight, utterly destroyed. Friends vanished, phones went unanswered, reputations ruined, permanently, utterly. The legal battle was intense. They hired expensive lawyers, tried to fight, tried to discredit Agnes, tried to claim she'd gifted them the art, tried to argue the power of attorney gave them authority, but the evidence was too overwhelming. The emails, the financial trails, the fakes, Julian's testimony, Agnes's clear, lucid account now that she was free from their influence. It was ultimately hopeless for them. They lost everything, their assets, what remained of them were seized, frozen, eventually liquidated, attempting to make restitution, but so much money was already spent, hidden in complex offshore structures, irretrievably lost. Jail time was inevitable and significant. Separate trials, separate defense strategies, ending in separate lengthy sentences, reflecting the cold calculation, the duration, and the profound personal cruelty of their crimes. Chloe's sentence perhaps slightly longer due to the direct elder abuse aspect, the manipulation, the probable drugging, though that last part was harder to prove definitively after the fact. The doctor, the one who had so readily accepted Chloe's concerns, who had contributed to the false diagnosis without proper due diligence, who had potentially overprescribed or misprescribed medication, faced his own reckoning. A malpractice suit filed by Ms. Davies on Agnes's behalf, settled quickly out of court, a review by the medical board, initiated by evidence Agnes provided, her own documented timeline, her lucid notes from the period, countering his records, highlighting his lack of independent assessment. His career was scarred, his reputation tarnished, perhaps ended, a necessary consequence for his negligence, his complicity, however unintentional it might have seemed to him, recovering the art. That was a longer, more painful, more complex process. Some pieces were traced relatively quickly, bought back from unsuspecting buyers or reputable galleries who cooperated fully once the fraud was revealed. Thanks to Julian's extensive network and the legal pressure exerted by Ms. Davies, others, sold through shadier channels, passed through multiple hands, vanished into private collections in countries with less stringent regulations. They were likely gone forever, a painful, permanent scar, a loss Agnes had to accept. But Agnes, she got her home back, completely, unquestionably. She got her life back, her autonomy, her name, cleared, vindicated, respected. Her strength and resilience admired by those who learned the full story. The fakes were eventually gathered, documented, and then destroyed, a symbolic cleansing, a refusal to live with the reminders of the violation. She didn't get everything back, not all the precious art that held memories of Arthur, not the years lost to their manipulation and gaslighting, not the trust she once had in family, in kindness, but she got justice, cold, hard, uncompromising justice. Served meticulously, just as she had planned it, and she found a new purpose, unexpectedly. She didn't retreat, she didn't hide, she became a quiet, but fierce, advocate, working with Ms. Davies and elder protection charities, sharing her story, carefully, selectively, as a warning, a call for vigilance, a testament to the fact that sharp minds can reside in aging bodies, and that vulnerability should never be mistaken for weakness. Her mind, the one declared failing, confused, demented, proved sharper, more resilient, more strategically brilliant, and ultimately more dangerous to her enemies than anyone, especially Chloe and Marcus, could ever have imagined. She still lives in her house. The silence is different now, not lonely, but peaceful, earned, surrounded by the art that remains, the genuine pieces, and perhaps surrounded by the quiet, steely satisfaction of her victory. And yes, she still sets cryptic crosswords, publishes them under a new pseudonym. Some say, those who know where to find them, that they're more intricate, more layered, more challenging than ever before. Full of hidden meanings, just waiting to be decoded. Agnes's story, it really stays with you, doesn't it? The depth of the betrayal, targeting not just her finances, her security, but her very identity, her mind, her connection to her late husband, her legacy. It's staggering, it's deeply disturbing on a human level, and the comeback, fueled by that righteous rage, channeled into such a precise, strategic, patient, and ultimately devastating plan, using their own tools, their arrogance, their carelessness, their technology, against them, turning the tables with such finality. Was her payback ruthless? Maybe, some might see the coldness of it, The lack of expressed emotion beyond that final smile, as harsh, but was it deserved? Was it justice? Given what they tried to do, steal her life's worth, her memories, her sanity, erase her very existence while pretending to care, I think, yes, it was absolutely deserved, it was necessary. It was justice, hardened and meticulously delivered. What do you think? Was it pure justice? Or was there an element of satisfying revenge in there too? And does the distinction even matter in a case like this? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I genuinely read them all. And these complex stories always generate fascinating discussions. That's the kind of story we delve into here. Stories of incredible resilience. Of finding strength in the darkest of times. Of fighting back when everything seems lost. Of finding strength you didn't know you had, even when the fight gets ugly, because sometimes life forces you into situations where getting ugly is the only way to survive and prevail. Thank you for listening, truly, for giving Agnes's story your attention. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and definitely ring that notification bell, so you don't miss the next story. We have more coming, more hidden truths, more tales of survival and sometimes extraordinary payback, stories you won't want to miss. Until next time, stay strong, stay aware, look out for the vulnerable among us, and take care of each other.